How's she going, boys? Mike here. Welcome back to Grampie's Workshop. Boys, we got a nice day going on here at the lake today, I must say. Look at that. Not a cloud to be seen. Yeah, you know, the other day when I had my snow clearing video, we had about 4 inches of snow down. Well, a couple of days after that snow, it turned mild, it rained, it got right windy, it was plus 13. All the snow is gone now. The ice even went off the lake. But now, night before last, it was like minus 12, I think, and then last night I think it was minus 14. So the lake's all froze over again. And it's cold here again today, too. I think it's about minus 6 out right now. Anyways, let's go back in the shop. I got a project that I'm starting there using my box joint jig. I'm going to show you how to set it up and use it and see if this box joint jig is really worth all the hype I've been giving it. Let's go check it out. The other day I spent some time cut up all the 1/2-inch plywood, that sheet I had, plus any of the scrap pieces I could find around the shop, and I made up enough blanks to build some boxes, not all of them, but some of them. But I was running short on the 1/2-inch plywood. So we ended up, I have to use some 1/2-inch OSB aspenite here, but we're going to put that at the back of the box, so hopefully it's not going to make a big difference. So these are the pieces I have cut for 2 boxes here that are going to go up in the corner of the shelf, but I want to mark each of these pieces as to what they are. So I've cut enough pieces here to make 2 boxes, because between each one of the blue uprights there on my shelf I can get 2 boxes. So I'm going to mark these as box 1, box 2. These boxes are going to be 16 inches wide and 14 inches deep, and of course they're all 12 inches tall. So this one is going to be front for box 1. Now these aspenite pieces are the backs, so this is going to be back 1. So we're going to identify all the pieces that way, and then we'll be ready to set up the box joint jig. So I've made some boxes already using the box joint jig, just to get better at using it. So I am getting better, I must say. I've made, let me see, 2, 4, I've made 6 boxes so far. So we're going to make some more here this morning. A couple of critical things to do for your box joint. First of all, you set your dado stack to however wide you want your fingers. One thing I did with the jig too, when I first made it, I was having problems with it being sloppy side to side. So I put a little bit of tape on it here, just to try to take that slop out of it. The tape really didn't work that great, but one of the things that did make a big improvement was I put some wax on it. That's the wax I normally put on the surface of the saw. In fact, I waxed the saw again, and I waxed the bottom of the blade of the jig. So yeah, that slides in there a whole lot better now. The other thing, we have to line up our movable fence. This is the beauty of this jig. No matter what size fingers you want to make, you can make a front face here, front fence to suit. So the initial setup of the jig is important, right? Because we want to have the gap between this index finger and where we start to cut the slots, the exact width that we need for our fingers and our joints. The slots we're going to cut are as wide as this key. So I have a piece of stock here that's as wide as that key, which is as wide as the dado stack. So the dado stack has to be set the same width as your key, or your key has to be made the same width as the dado stack. So I'm going to put this blank right here next to the key. I'm going to move this into the saw, and I'm going to slide my movable fence to the left until everything is nice and tight and fits good against the dado stack. Something like that right there. Then I can tighten down my fence with the wing nuts on the back of it. So when you're making a jig like this, you need to make your index key as wide as you want your fingers, and then you have to keep a piece of that because we need to make that spacer in there, see? Okay, so once we have that, that's all set up. Another crucial setup is, how deep are we going to make the slots? The slots have to be as deep as the sides are on your box. In this case, I'm using 1/2-inch plywood. I'm going to put my stock on there, slide it in, and what I want to do is raise the dado stack until it just clears the top of this. But it's important that the stock that you're cutting be set on top of that fence. Okay, so we're going to raise our dado stack. Just raise it until I can just feel the blades coming past that. And what I found for making the other box joints. It's better for the fingers to be too long than too short, because if they're too short, then you have to go back and recut them all. If they're too long, the box just tends to be a little tiny bit smaller, and you can sand down the extra fingers that are protruding. I can just feel that picking above the 1/2 inch. So now my dado stack is set the right height. My fence is set correct. The only thing left to do now is to make finger joints. Remember, I've got pieces cut here to do 2 boxes. These 2 boxes are going to be identical. They're both going to be 16 inches wide, 14 inches deep, and 12 inches tall. So I'm thinking I can set up and do the front and the back, and the front and the back, like put 4 pieces in my jig, and do the fronts and the backs for both boxes at the same time. I know it's radical, but let's try it. I've also found that it works a lot better if you can clamp the work as often and as much as you can. So I have an adjustable vice grip clamp here, plus I've got 2 bar clamps. When I set the wood together, set the pieces together, I can clamp them all so they won't move, and then when I set them on the jig, I can clamp them in place with my vice grip clamp. So right here I have a back and a front for drawer number 2, and a back and a front for drawer number 1. I want to set these up so that all the edges are nice and straight and true, or as straight and true as I can get them. And don't forget, because we're cutting the fingers on this side, we want to put our clamps on this side. Well, I've got the sides all clamped, or the fronts and the backs all clamped together nice and tight, and they're lined up pretty good. So now we're ready to go. So we're going to put those on here, and because these are the fronts and the backs, I want to start with a finger and then cut a slot. To do that, I just take this side, the top side, and put that right tight against the indexing key. Just like so. Then we make sure that this is tight down against the sole on the jig. And then, if I can fit this in here, we're going to clamp that in place so that it doesn't move. So just confirm everything is set up good. So it's tight on the sole, tight against the keyway. So let's go. We're going to cut our first slot. So you'll see as we move this into the saw, we're leaving a finger. We're going to cut a slot here. So then we take our clamp off, and then we move this, index it, and put it on the key. Clamp it again. Confirm that we're down tight on the sole, and we are. Then we can cut the next one. So then it's just a simple matter of continuing that process across the full edge. So we'll do that, and then we'll turn around and do the other side. So there's the fingers cut on the bottom on that side. So now we just flip it around, but no, we don't just flip it like that. We have to flip it like this, because I want this slot that was on the top here and that spacing to be the same on the bottom. So we have to set it in this way. And then we're going to cut these across here now. So there we have the fronts and the backs of both boxes cut with the finger joints. So I have the left and right hand sides for both boxes lined up and clamped together. All the edges are nice and smooth. What I need to do though is, because I started the front here, this is one of the fronts, I started out with a pin, then I have to have a slot here to accept that. So that's the only key difference here. is I have to start with a slot. So how do I start with a slot? To get it in the right position, I take one of the front pieces, and I have that clamped on my jig here now. So that goes over the index, so there's the pin. So I can put this box right next to that and start cutting, and I'll start by cutting a slot. But I can't do that with this clamp on here, so I need to get another clamp. I'm going to clamp that up here just so that I don't disturb any of the setup, because it took me a while to get them all nice and smooth. So I'll take that clamp off of there. So now we can move this in here nice, right up tight against that. I don't have any clamps big enough to hold that right now, so I'm just going to try and hold it by hand. And we're going to make the first cut, which will be a slot. So now we don't need this front piece anymore, and I can put this clamp then back down here. And now we move that over the key. And we'll clamp this. Alright, make sure that we're down tight on the shoe, tight against the key, and we're ready to go. So now we're going to cut slots now across the bottom of this, just like before. The trick doing the side sew is to make sure that you get the slot cut where it needs to be, not like you did on the front one. Okay, so we have all our fingers and everything cut along the bottom now, that's good. So now we're just going to flip this upside down like so, and we have to put our front piece in again to give us the proper spacing. So now we're going to put that in there, better, and hold that like that. Okay, so there's the sides for both boxes cut out. Now the next thing, we just assemble them, see that we got the depths of these fingers correctly, see how that goes together. The system I use for clamping it, I don't have ideal clamps for clamping all this together, but I do have a lot of clamps, and I'm going to use a lot of them to clamp this together. So just bear with me while I clamp it up. So we're just starting to fit the top or the front piece on here. So we're going to let that glue dry and set up. So then I take my box and I make sure that the side I want as up is up, and then we're going to start the router and put it in here and just move it around there and cut out route out the bottom to make room for the base. So it's going to get noisy. So there's my rabbit all the way around the bottom. So I cut out a piece of luan and round it over the corners. That's going to be in there, something like that. So then just take some brads. So we just put brads all the way around the perimeter. So now with my holes in here and in countersunk, I made these skis, and that's just a piece of 1 by about 3/8 of an inch thick, and I ran it over the end so that they would slide onto the shelf up there a little bit better. So I'm going to put these on here. I have a bunch of rough stock here cut up into the pulls, and all I did to make these was, again, this is just veranda flooring, so it's 1 inch thick. I took a piece of 1 by 4, just ripped it down to 1.5 inches. Then I set the saw at a 15-degree angle, and I ran it through and put a bevel on this side, a bevel on this side. Then I set the blade back straight and just cut that off to make that shape. Makes a nice little pull. Pretty simple to make. So we're going to put that on there. So we're over here at the mechanical bench, which is the paint shop now. And we're going to paint this box gray. And I'm not going to paint the skis because I'm going to paint the skis brown. I also took the handle off it, the pull handle, because I'm going to paint it brown too. You know, as much as I dislike painting, I figure if I'm going to do it, I may as well, you know, fancy it up a little. So there, what do you think of that? The box is all nicely painted gray now, and it's got the contrasting color handle on it, and don't forget the contrasting color skis on the bottom. Sound nice, eh? She's a beauty. Yes, sir. You know, box joints, they make a good, strong, solid, sturdy box, and that's just what I needed for storing materials up in my shelf, and that's what I ended up with here with these boxes. So we're glad we made them. It was quite a little challenge though to make the box joint jig and then to form up the boxes. But you know, now that I have the jig, it's going to be good if I ever want to make other box joints. I can make them various sizes pretty easily, so it's going to work good that way. But anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. Sure to appreciate the time you spent on this project with me, because it was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, but you know, it was good fun though. I think. Anyways, you know, Christmas not far away, New Year's is just around the corner too, so from Nanny and I wish you all the best the holiday season, and Merry Christmas to everyone, and Happy New Year too. And don't forget, thumbs up me on my video here, and we'll talk to you soon.